Hey there, I'm Lon Schiffbauer, and today what I'm going to do is kind of do a side-by-side comparison of several cameras, many of which you either already have or can get very inexpensively. Here's the idea. There are a ton of camera review videos out there, and they're fascinating, interesting, so on and so forth, but they really get into the guts of the camera. And furthermore, I'm not a professional photographer or videographer, and so 90% of what they talk about, I don't get, I don't understand, I don't know that I need to. And what's more, it feels like every time I watch a review, I kind of feel like, oh, I need that camera. No, you don't. And at the end of the day, we're not rich, right? We need to make do with what we have, and we need to embrace our constraints, as it were. So what I want to do is show you what all these cameras look like in terms of their video quality so that you can first assess what you have, what your needs are, and what level of quality you're willing to sort of accept given your constraints, and whether or not you feel like you need to invest in something a little more professional to get the level of quality you want for your particular videos or live streams. So with that, let's go ahead and look at a bunch of cameras. Now this footage that you see right here, this is off of my laptop. So this is probably the most accessible camera that many of us have. Now, a few things to consider. I don't really have a lot of control when it comes to the color and settings and so forth. I suppose I could find some software that would allow me to do that, but this is pretty straightforward. I had to kind of mess with the lights quite a bit to get this to look halfway decent. And yet this is what we see in most WebEx or Zoom or GoToMeetings, those team meetings online and so forth. Another thing to consider with a laptop camera, at least with this one, is that the resolution is lower than one might expect. This one is 1280 by 720p versus a standard camera will probably give you something around 1920 by 1080p, which basically means a larger picture, better resolution, things like that. Nevertheless, this camera that you see right now, you probably have one very much like it on your laptop. Now, this particular footage is being shot on my smartphone, and I have it set so that it's not in selfie mode. I'm actually using the better lens, which means I can't really see whether or not this is coming through well, which is a little bit problematic. Nevertheless, I made sure that the setup was right and I could be fairly certain that I was coming in well. Nevertheless, you can also use selfie mode, which is what I did in a previous video. Now, as you can see, the footage here, the quality, the crispness is much better. Now, you don't really get any depth of field like you would get in a, kind of DSLR or a mirrorless camera. Nevertheless, really nice, crisp video. This footage here is being shot on a Logitech 920 webcam. One of these simple little webcams, very inexpensive. I think they're significantly less than $100. That you go ahead and install, pop on your monitor if you have a desktop, and you're good to go. Now, the really nice thing about these cameras is they give you a lot more control in terms of exposure and color. Furthermore, they're 1080p, which means that you get some pretty nice resolution. Now, obviously, it's not as crisp as you're going to get with a full-on camera or even with your phone. Nevertheless, they're pretty versatile. Many of the videos, in fact, all of my first run videos that I did a few years ago, they were all shot on this very webcam. So while it's not top of the line, incredible and so forth, it's a really affordable option, one that I like a great deal. Now this footage is being shot on a Canon, Rebel T3i DSLR. Now, the Rebel T3i is a really old camera. I mean, you can't even buy these things anymore. But the reason I'm including it is there's a good chance you have an old DSLR sitting around yourself. Now, they're not exactly made for shooting video like this. You got to kind of mess with them and tweak them quite a bit. Nevertheless, a vast majority of the videos I shot in the past year or two were shot on this very camera. Now, you need a lot of light. You need to invest in lenses. Of course, the lighting is not great here right now. This isn't really what I'm focusing on for this particular video series. Nevertheless, it gives you a pretty decent idea of the sort of quality you can get. Right away, you're noticing an increase in depth and depth of field. You notice the background is a little blurry. That's because of the way that I have the focal length set up and so forth. Still, you got to kind of mess with them a little bit. But if you have a DSLR laying around, you can use it as a video cam. And that brings me to this, the last camera. This is a Sony a6400. And I love this camera. It is a fantastic piece of kit. It's easy to use, it's versatile, gives me lots of flexibility, shoots in 4K, which gives me lots of flexibility when it comes to editing, zooming in, moving about, and so forth. Furthermore, it can be used in live streaming, autofocus. I mean, I just can't say enough about this camera in this particular lens, which is the Sigma 16 1.4. All of that said, this comes with a price tag. It's certainly not the most expensive thing you can get, not by a long shot. But when it comes to prosumer wear, yeah, the lens and the camera and so forth, it'll probably run you about, $2,500–3,000, something like that. So yeah, not cheap. But my gosh, the quality, the capability, the crispness, the depth of field. I mean, I can just go on and on. Nevertheless, now you're starting to get to some pretty significant investment. All right, so there you go. 5 cameras lined up, quality and resolution, all there for you to consider and examine. Now, by the way, earlier I mentioned live streaming. A lot of the cameras that I mentioned will allow live streaming. However, not all of them. And so that's something we'll consider in a future video. Until then, I hope this was helpful. Go out there and make some awesome stuff, and we'll talk to you later. Have a fantastic day.